So we haven't been to a restaurant in a really long time. I'm going to give you some mushrooms, and I know you're not typically a mushroom lover, but I think you're going to love these stuffed mushrooms and some delicious cream spinach with garlic and nutmeg.
The cheese is great. I taste a little bit of the shallots in there. That's a fantastic flavor. And
I mean, I might serve this with like grilled shrimp, like something light.
But when parties return, when dinner parties return, even if they have to be on the porch or on the deck, initially, these would be two really great dishes.
We're doing vegetables today on the French chef. Carrots, beans, broiled stuffed mushrooms, and braised spinach. That's what we're going to do today on the French chef.
Now, the past year, I think, has made us a lot more interested in home cooking. I think we've all been trying to bump up our home cooking game. And who better to help us with that than Julia? So today I'm going to be making one of my favorite Julia recipes, which is stuffed mushrooms. It's a real classic. And to go with that, I'm going to make another steakhouse classic, which is cream spinach. As always, I have my mom's copy of Mastering the Art of French Cooking with me. And today I'm going to start with the stuffed mushrooms, which in French are called champignons farcis. Please excuse my bad accent, I'm trying. So to start the recipe, as Julia instructs, we have some mushrooms. I've got about 2 dozen mushrooms. Now I've buttered most of the mushrooms, I'm just doing one more. So you're just kind of putting a little butter on your finger and then rubbing it over the surface, the cut side of the mushroom. And that'll just serve to make them taste more delicious. They'll broil better, it adds a little flavor. So the mushroom stems that you would just typically discard actually make the filling of this recipe. So we're just going to chop these up. I'm just kind of going through with my knife like this, kind of keeping the tip of the knife on the board and keeping my fingers safely distanced from that. I'm sort of making a claw with my fingers. And then what Julia does is she takes her knife and kind of just starts chopping like this. She holds it at the top on the end.
If you don't have a chop knife, you just mash the mushrooms, and what you want them are in distinct little pieces. If you were starting out to study as a French chef, you'd spend about your first 2 years chopping mushrooms and onions and everything else. And you'd think you got all your mushrooms chopped fine enough, and the chef would say, no, it's not nearly fine enough.
So the next step is one that is somewhat optional, but it is a really good step for maximum deliciousness. What Julia would do here is she takes her chopped mushrooms and puts them in a towel. I'm putting them over a bowl. I'm gonna just scoop them up with my bench scraper and put them in here. And then she squeezes out the juice. And this allows for better browning when you actually introduce these into the pan. Mushrooms really are like little sponges, and they do contain a lot of water. And that will cook off in the heat. But with all that liquid in the pan, it inhibits browning. Boy, I'm really putting some muscle into this. I'm gonna chop my shallot the way Julia likes to do it, which is you place it on your board and then you make a series of horizontal cuts kind of up the length of the shallot. So you're kind of making these slices horizontally.
You notice that cutting down this way and cutting across. Do practice this method because it's so quick.
Okay, so I've got about 2 tablespoons of butter here. I'm gonna let that melt. So my butter's hot and melty, and I'm going to move these shallots into the nice hot butter and let these soften for a little bit. I'm going to salt them, just a pinch as well, because we do have a nice salty ingredient going in here shortly. Just get a little olive oil and add about a tablespoon in there. This is miso paste, which is a Japanese ingredient. It's fermented soybeans, and it's so delicious, and it's so rich in that flavor, that kind of elusive flavor we call umami, and it also is salty. So rather than needing to salt very much, I'm just adding this miso paste, and I'm also now going to add my mushrooms. And you just get this beautiful, rich, meaty umami flavor without needing any meat. Okay, so now I'm going to thicken my mixture with some breadcrumbs, some just dried breadcrumbs. And also now I'm going to add some chopped parsley because it adds flavor. I'm going to use most of this is about a quarter cup. And then the last step is to turn off the heat, even take it off the heat, and add some cheeses. Now, Julia would use a Comté or a Swiss cheese. I've got some nice, good old cheddar because this is New England and it tastes really good with mushrooms. So in that goes. Now, Julia does add a little bit of cream to the mixture. I'm going to add the tiniest bit, like less than a tablespoon. It does kind of just have a nice way of helping the cheese melt into the mixture. Okay, so that's my filling. My filling is ready, and I'm going to fill them. So I just take a tablespoon, like this, and I'm just going to divide this evenly among the mushroom caps. Err on the side of underfilling them, and then you can go back.
These mushrooms are just, well, they're delicious all by themselves. You can put them on toast or surround a roast with them. When you're buying mushrooms, it's best to go to a supermarket that has them all loose, and then you can pick out the ones that you want.
Okay, so my mushrooms are filled. They look scrumptious. So yay, Julia, for reminding us how good vegetables can be. Okay, so these are ready to go into the oven. They go into a broiler. You want them to be about 6 inches from the heating element for 5 to 6 minutes. So I just had the inspiration to add a little bit of Parmesan to some of these. I like some of them without, but it is a nice little added flavor boost when you get like a crust on them. So while my mushrooms are cooling, I'm going to go ahead and start on the spinach. This is a very quick dish. It takes almost no time to make. And we're going to start with the spinach itself. Now, Julia shows that we need to squeeze the excess water out of spinach before we cook with it.
This is something that often horrifies Americans because they've been, I don't know, sort of buffaloed into doing nothing about a vegetable, and just the idea of squeezing it just seems like sacrilege.
So I'm just kind of chopping this spinach up.
It easily picks up a metallic taste. I don't know why. So I'm very careful, and I chop with a stainless steel knife.
Now I'm going to just transfer my spinach to the pan with the butter, like this. Okay, so we're just going to cook the spinach in the butter. Spinach will kind of soak up the butter at first, and then as the water releases from the spinach, it will also release that butter. And you'll start to hear crackling or popping noises, and that means that you have properly cooked off the excess liquid in the spinach. So now's the time to add some flour. The flour acts as a thickener, and while this cooks with the spinach, it will also continue to dry the spinach. I'm going to now add something that I don't think Julie would fully approve of, which is garlic. Julie was not the biggest fan of garlic. She preferred shallots. I love the flavor of garlic and nutmeg with spinach. So I've got about a quarter teaspoon of nutmeg. I'm going to add a combination of cream and chicken stock just to lighten this up a little bit. So I'm going to go with my palette here and do half stock and then half cream. I'm going to let that cook. Now I'm going to also add some salt. I'd say half a teaspoon, and some freshly ground black pepper, and that's all my seasoning that's going to go in here. And just because I happen to have some Parmesan on hand, I'm going to just sprinkle that in. You absolutely do not need to. It's just that I had a little bit of extra. So just to finish the dish, I'm just sprinkling some breadcrumbs. I just took some breadcrumbs that I had made and toasted them in butter and a little bit of oil. And to finish the mushrooms, I'm going to sprinkle them with some fresh parsley. Very classic and simple and very inexpensive. So I hope you enjoyed my take on Julia's French vegetable recipes. I love them. I hope you'll try them. And if you do, be sure to tag GBH on social media. And remember, as Julia said, there's no end to imagination in the kitchen.